Dear students, today we are going to see about spoilage types and its sources. We all know that food passes through many steps like harvesting, cleaning, processing, transporting and other handling operations till reaching consumer. The food needs to be consumed before it becomes unfit for consumption. The consumer requires the food to be highly safe till consumption. The contamination and spoilage of food may be due to numerous reasons. It is highly challenging task to maintain the safety of food from farm to fork. On completion of this module, you will be able to know about the different types of spoilage and also the sources of food spoilage, and also able to analyze the intrinsic and extrinsic properties influencing food spoilage. First, we'll see about what is food spoilage. Food spoilage is a process in which the physical and chemical properties of foods change and becomes unfit for consumption. Many external forces are responsible for the causing undesirable changes in the food which lead to spoilage. Such undesirable changes can be noticed by smell, taste, touch or sight. More often, spoilage refers to microbial spoilage as a result of direct contact between the food and contaminated or unclean surfaces. It includes food-to-food contact, for example, raw meat and cooked meat, or between a fresh fruit and a rotten fruit. The foods are considered to be fit for consumption when they are at desired stage of development or maturity. For example, food at correct ripening stage, example corn at young and milky stage. And it should be free from pollution at any stage from farm to fork. For example, fish from unpolluted water, fruits and vegetables without residue of fertilizers. And it should be free from any objectionable change resulting from microbial attack or action of enzymes of food. Example, wilted vegetables or else putrefaction in meat. Next is the classification of foods by ease of spoilage. Based on the ease of spoilage, foods are classified into three groups. Let us see the groups one by one. First one is stable or non-perishable foods. Non-perishable foods do not spoil at normal temperature when handled properly. They do not need refrigeration and have a prolonged shelf life. It includes sugar, ghee, hydrogenated oil, puppets, preserves like jams and jellies. Second type is semi-perishable foods. Semi-perishable foods do not spoil for a longer time when stored properly. They are low moisture foods. It includes processed grains, lentils, flours and dry beans. Their shelf life highly depends on the temperature and humidity of the air in the storage environment. Other semi-perishable foods also include onions, potatoes and nuts. The third type is perishable foods. The perishable food product includes milk and milk products, egg, meat, poultry, fish, fruits and vegetables such as banana, apple and green leafy vegetables. They are high moisture foods and ideal for microbial growth. They have very short span of shelf life and easily spoiled by enzymatic activities. Next, we'll move on to the types of food spoilage. Decomposition or decay of foods turn into unfit for human consumption. Such decay of foods may be broadly classified into the following three types. They are microbial spoilage, physical spoilage and chemical spoilage. Let me look into the individual spoilage type. First is the microbial spoilage. Microorganisms are found in nearly all places such as soil, water, air, on the skin of cattle, fruits and vegetables, on the feathers of poultry, on hulls of grains, shells of nuts, on the clothing and skin of handling personnel, on equipment used for processing and inside the intestines and body cavities of animal and human body. They are capable of spoiling food at a rapid rate. These microorganisms such as bacteria, yeast, molds spoil food by producing substances which alter color, texture and odor of the food. It also renders the food unfit for human consumption. For example, souring of milk, growth of mold on bread and rotting of fruits and vegetables. The three major groups of microorganisms that are responsible for food spoilage are yeast, molds and bacteria. Let us first discuss about yeast. Yeast are the single-celled fungi causes fermentation as a result of yeast metabolism. The yeast are classified into true yeast and false yeast. Yeast have the capability to survive and multiply at low pH, low water activity and even in the presence of chemical preservatives. It makes them a potent food spoilage organism responsible for undesirable changes in the flavor, aroma and taste of final food products. True yeast involves a fermentation process where it metabolizes sugar and produces alcohol and carbon dioxide. False yeast grows on food surface as a dry film, for example, as in the surface of pickles. False yeast occurs in food having high sugar or high acid environment. Anaerobic fermentative yeast are the major cause for most of the food spoilage. For example, oxygen in a sealed food container is rapidly consumed and creates an anaerobic environment. The spoilage organism will grow under the absence of oxygen and begin gas production. The osmophilic yeast tolerates and grows in high osmotic pressure environment such as high sugar or high salt concentration. Similarly, zero tolerant yeast tolerate and grow in dry conditions. Syrups, jams, conserves, fondants are also susceptible to spoilage by these types of yeast. Next type of spoilage causing organism is molds. Molds are type of fungus grown in the form of multicellular filaments forming a tough visible mass called mold growth. They form spores which when dry drift through air to find a suitable condition and start their growth cycle. Molds are aerobic organisms. They require oxygen to grow. Hence, they are usually confined to the surface of food forming easily visible, sometimes colored colonies on foods. Molds can cause illness and also impart bad taste and smell to the food products. And the main symptoms from consumption of mold attacked food will be nausea and vomiting. Molds grow well on slightly acidic condition and they require moisture and warm temperature between 20 to 40 degrees Celsius. It is capable of thriving in high acid foods like fruits, tomatoes, jams, jellies and pickles. Mold growth are generally seen in foods like bread, cheese and meat. They are easily destroyed by thermal treatment. Processing of foods at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius for the suitable length of time will destroy both yeast and molds. Here you can view some of the fungal spoilage in fruits with the responsible organisms given in the table. The third spoilage causing microorganism is bacteria. Bacteria are round, rod and spiral shaped microorganisms under a wide variety of conditions. Spoilage causing bacteria can be divided into spore forming and non-spore forming. Harmful disease causing bacteria are called pathogenic bacteria. They are the germs that cause food poisoning. Thermal processing of low acid foods in a pressure canner at 116 Celsius for appropriate length of time destroys bacterial spores. Consumption of bacterial spoiled food can cause food poisoning. Most of the bacteria cannot survive in acidic environment below pH of 4.5. The activity of bacterial growth can be slowed down by refrigeration and freezing. The second type of spoilage is physical spoilage. The physical spoilage is due to the occurrence of any damage to the product during harvesting, handling, transporting and processing. The physical factors such as temperature, moisture content, oxygen concentration and pressure acting upon the foods may cause spoilage of foods. The high heat treatment of foods destroys nutrients, denatures protein, breaks down emulsions and remove moisture from foods. Also, exposing food to extreme low temperatures such as freezing also degrades color, alters the texture and cracks the outer surface which permits contamination by microbes. Similarly, application of pressure will likely to disintegrate the structure, release the product content and harbors the growth of microorganism. The presence of foreign substance such as glass, wood chips, animal excreta, sand, stone, dead insects or part of insects may not spoil, but they impart a hazard to the consumers. The physical spoilage increases the chance of microbial or chemical contaminations. For example, any damage in the skin of fruits tends to spoil rapidly than undamaged fruits. The presence of insect and pest and their excreta in the foods may produce off flavors and accelerate the decay process. The product of insect and pest activities such as webbing, clumping together food particles and holes can also reduce the food values. Rats and mice carry disease producing microorganisms on their feet and also in their urine and feces, and they contaminate the food by their presence. The other type of spoilage is by chemicals or enzymatic reactions called as chemical or enzymatic spoilage. The foods are of best quality when they appear fresh, but after fruits and vegetables are harvested or else after the animals are butchered, chemical changes begin within the food and lead to deterioration in quality. These chemical reactions are responsible for the color and flavor changes in foods during processing and storage. The naturally occurring enzyme initiates most of the chemical reactions in food. In fruits, demethylation of pectic substances in plant tissues leads to excess softening of fruits. Similarly, for example, when fruits such as apple are cut and exposed to air, enzymes bring about a chemical reaction to produce brown colored components in the product, and this is called as enzymatic browning. Few enzymes in fruits cause it to decay by autolysis, that is self-destruction. Such enzymatic spoilage damages the skin and easily harbors the growth of mold as well as speed up the process of decay. Uncontrolled enzymatic reactions will produce off odor and undesirable color changes to the product. The presence of moisture in the product induces hydrolytic rancidity of fats and to form free fatty acid, which produces off odors and undesirable rancid flavors in fats and oils. The presence of oxygen also reduces the quality in case of fats and fatty portions of food. On oxidation of lipids, they form a short chain carbon compounds with strong, unacceptable oil-like fishy odors. Let us now discuss about the factors affecting microbial spoilage. The factors that are responsible for microbial spoilage in food products are intrinsic and extrinsic factors of foodstuffs. The intrinsic factors of foodstuff includes moisture content and water activity, biological structure, pH and acidity, antimicrobial substances. Perishable foods get spoiled faster than semi-perishable or non-perishable categories. The obvious reason is because of their water content. The microbes require water for their survival, and the water which is available for the growth of microbe is referred to as water activity. The water requirement for survival of bacteria is high, which is greater than 0.91, whereas for yeast and molds, it requires lower water requirement. Hence, by reducing the water activity of foods, the growth of microbes can be reduced. The given table shows the minimum water activity requirement for the growth of bacteria, yeast and molds. Biological structures of foods is one of the intrinsic parameter influencing spoilage. Foods with natural covering offer unique protection against the entry and subsequent damage of spoilage organism. For example, peels of fruit and vegetables and hard shells of nuts, seeds and eggs. But when the covering is once damaged, then the product will undergo a rapid microbial spoilage. Another best example is the effective biological structure in egg. External microbial contamination of the perishable yolk is prevented when the covering is intact. However, internal contamination is possible through trans-ovarian infection. Microorganisms can penetrate into the egg from the shell surface through cracks. Also, storage of uncleaned eggs in an improper storage environment will increase the likelihood for entry of bacteria. Every microorganism has a maximal and optimal pH for growth. Yeast and molds can tolerate more acidic condition than bacteria. The characteristic pH of foods varies between neutral and acidic. Acidic foods with low pH values of below 4.5 are not readily spoiled by bacteria but are more liable to spoilage by yeast and molds. A low pH food tends to be microbiologically stable than a neutral food. This is the reason behind the keeping quality of soft drinks, fermented milks, sauerkraut and pickles. But few pathogens can survive even at low pH levels. For example, Clostridium botulinum produces its toxin at a pH of 4.2. Nutrient composition of foods such as carbohydrates, fats and proteins attracts the growth of microorganisms. The starches and glucose are used as their source of energy by degrading them to simple sugars. Amino acids serve as a source of nitrogen and energy and are utilized by most of the microorganisms, and they use fat as also an energy source. Foods with naturally occurring antimicrobial substances like essential oils and spices are not easily attacked by microorganisms. For example, eugenol in cloves, allicin in garlic, cinnamic aldehyde and eugenol in cinnamon. Certain fruits and vegetables, teas containing hydroxyl cinnamic acid derivative also shows the antimicrobial activity. Next is the extrinsic factor of foodstuffs. The extrinsic factors include temperature, relative humidity of the environment, concentration of gases. Based on the requirement of optimal temperature for their growth, microorganisms are categorized into three different groups called psychrotrophs, mesophils and thermophils. Psychrotrophic organisms can grow well or below 7 degrees Celsius. The lowest temperature at which a microorganism has been reported to grow is minus 34 degrees Celsius. Mesophils are those microorganisms that grow well between 20 and 45 degrees Celsius with optimal temperature between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. Thermophiles are those microorganisms that grow well and above at 45 degrees Celsius with an optimal between 55 and 65 degrees Celsius. Under the minimum temperature, the growth of spoilage organisms are ceased, whereas at the maximum temperature range, the microbes are killed. The minimum temperature for growth of Clostridium botulinum, Staphylococcus aureus and Salmonella are 10 degrees Celsius, 7 degrees Celsius and 5 to 6 degrees Celsius respectively. Humidity in storage area is an important factor influencing the growth of molds on food surfaces. Foods lose part of its moisture content during storage and form a dry surface. For example, formation of dry surface in cheese. Products with low water activity stored in humid environment absorb moisture and invades mold growth. The concentration of gas in the surrounding has a lot of influence over microbial growth. For example, a change in the partial pressure of oxygen can modify the chances of spoilage. Low oxygen and high carbon dioxide concentration minimizes the aerobic microbes. Unhygienic processing environment, cross-contamination of fresh food from infected product will also harbor the growth of microbes. Let us summarize the points. On spoilage, food becomes unfit for consumption. The origin of food spoilage is from contamination by different sources. A low pH food tends to be microbiologically stable than a neutral food. Foods with natural covering offer unique protection against the entry and subsequent damage by spoilage organisms. Yeast, molds and bacteria are the three major groups of microorganisms that are responsible for food spoilage. Humidity in storage area is an important factor influencing the growth of molds on food surfaces. Thank you.